Okay, and welcome again, everyone, on this Thursday night. Welcome to Coffee Time. Now, yeah, let's wait a while for everyone else to come in. Okay, just doing a mic test. Check one, check two. Can everyone hear me loud and clear? Can you please just put in the comments below if you can hear me loud and clear? Okay, good, good. Look, please feel free to share, right? Subscribe and like, and also feel free to share this with your friends, right? Tag your friend, let your friend know that you're watching this with ET. All right, thank you, Dixon. You can hear me loud and clear. Fantastic. All right. Okay. So tonight we've got another interesting topic as we do every night, right? We have look. Anytime throughout the presentation, feel free to throw in your questions or comments, right? In the comment section. Share, like, subscribe, let your friends know, right? So tag your friends so that they can join you to watch this, and let's go. So okay. Now, okay, thank you, Lily. I guess you can hear me loud and clear. Fantastic, fantastic. Cool. Okay, so tonight, I'm gonna share my screen now. Just give me a sec. There we go. Okay, so hope everyone's evening is going well. It's a Thursday evening as usual. It rained today, so that's good. And now let me just present. Okay. Hi, Sandish. Thanks for tagging your friend. Hi, Christine. Hello, Daniel. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so future proof. First of all, let me go through some of the disclaimers. Okay, so whatever is discussed tonight is not financial advice. It is just for informational purposes only and for sharing. If you are going to make any financial decision, please consult with a professional financial advisor, right? And speak to your financial advisor to if you're going to make any decisions, any financial decisions. I am not a financial. Thanks, Sandish. Okay, so disclaimers out of the way. Look again. You know that EquitiesTracker has, you can have free access to a platform for 2 weeks. You just have to WhatsApp that number up here, right? 603-840-8270. Feel free to WhatsApp us and get access to the platform, right? And we're on here every single night of the week, right? Like clockwork. Every night we're here. So feel free to join us every night. So okay, let's start with a term now. The term is future shock, right? Before we even go to that term, right? For those who don't know me, and maybe you're joining us for the first time tonight, right? My name is Andrew. I am the Chief Future Officer of EquitiesTracker. Yes, it's a pretty unique title. And every time I tell someone, I hand out my business card or I tell someone what I do, they'll look at my card and then they'll look at it again and they'll go, oh, Chief Future Officer. So what do you do? And I know it sounds funny. It sounds like I don't do much. I just rub my crystal ball and kind of predict the future. But really, so if you think about it, right? So technology would come under me, right? So I suppose that's a little bit of the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer function. Operationally, some operations I also oversee because very much technology very much influences how operations are carried out, right? So operations as well. I also look into tech-related matters in terms of investments, right? So those who have been following us, we used to call this, this session here, Crypto Night. We have decided to expand the scope because obviously we were covering digital assets, we were covering crypto. We've decided to expand the scope. By the end of this session, you will know what our new what the new name is or the new theme is, right? So we wanted to expand the coverage of what we cover, right? Because it's tech related. So the short answer that I usually tell people, hey, what do you do? The short answer is I try to future proof the company, right? Future proof. What does that mean? Well, you find out what it means by the end of this session, right? Obviously, I look at tech stocks. I deep dive into technology, especially in the crypto space, because it's actually a very exciting space right now. I feel like I'm back in the dot-com boom in the crypto space, so it's very exciting right now. Okay, so the other thing maybe that I like to share is that I've been in tech for quite a while, or at least in this space, and technology is usually built in layers, right? It's layer upon layer upon layer that tech is actually built, right? So it's just layers and layers and layers of new tech, and essentially, if you dive deep into it, you kind of start to see patterns, and you start to see things, and you begin to see the possibilities, right? Your imagination goes wild. You start to see the what could potentially happen in future, right? So so there's a futurist and an author called Alvin Toffler, and I suspect my brother might be named after him, Alvin. So he's got a book, and it's titled Future Shock. So what is future shock? So future shock, as defined by Alvin Toffler, is the dizzying disorientation brought on the premature arrival of the future. And you're like, well, what does that mean, right? Okay, so let's examine. So what happens to those who get future shocked? Like, what happens to you? So to do that, let's look at some examples, right? Let's go through some examples. And welcome, Yatlao. Welcome. I just saw your name. Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. So the first car company, right, was the Gurney Steam Engine Carriage Company. Now, it was actually British, believe it or not, right? For those of you who are motoring enthusiasts, I mean no disrespect, but if you look at British motoring engineering, especially the earlier ones, it could never ever compete with the German or the Japanese, right? British motor engineering has, they're not known to be the most reliable cars around. So anyway, so the first car was actually the Gurney Steam Carriage Company, and it was actually British and not German. Now, so why have we not heard of this guy? Well, it's quite interesting because now think of it. Now, a car is actually disruptive technology, right? Back in the day, can you imagine in the day of horse and carriages, right? The invention of a car is so disruptive that it could totally change the way we lived or the way they lived back then. And so think of it this way, right? Back then, you built your business on horse and carriages. Either, I don't know, and there were like satellite industries all around it, making the nuts and bolts and the parts for the carriage, making the wooden wheels, rearing the horses so that the horses are strong and have stamina. Now, so then here comes this guy who just invents this disruptive technology that totally kills that industry. Now, so many people would be put out of jobs, right? So many people would be being put out of jobs. Businesses would go bust, right? It was insane, right? So what really happened to this thing? So I'll just read it out for you, right? So So the it was the fear of new technology, right? And obviously conspiracy that were perpetrated by the railroads and the horse-drawn carriage operators, right? So I guess they went on some sort of PR scare campaign, right? To scare up the general public that to let's whoa, let's be careful with all this crazy new technology. Like, what the hell? You want to put a car on the road? Like, no. We why do we need cars? I mean, we've got horse and carriages, and we've got the railroads. We don't need cars. And can you imagine back then? They didn't even have roads yet, right? So so what happened? Well, obviously they lobbied, and they lobbied hard, right? All the those who were in power back then, the incumbents, what did they do? They lobbied hard to the politicians, and what they did was they managed to get a what's known as the Red Flag Act passed in Parliament, right? So the Red Flag Act, right, is essentially a locomotive act, which essentially um, discourage the ownership of this crazy mechanical vehicle. It discouraged the use of it discouraged basically the growth of this new disruptive technology industry. It made up rules that made it impossible for that technology to grow. So it's called the Red Flag Act because essentially, I think there were three things that they required from for you to operate a motor vehicle. One was there was a certain speed limit. You could not go between you cannot go above 2 to 4 miles per hour, right? And then you needed at least three people to operate a motor vehicle, and one to drive, one to navigate, and one person to run in front of the car to wave a red flag to let everyone know that a motor car was coming. So, essentially, it was crazy, right? It just made it made it impossible. It made it impossible to to actually build this growing industry. Now, you know, throughout history, you would see this being repeated over and over again, right? One was like this one is the Red Flag Act, where we talk about cars, where it was such the technology was so disruptive that it scared people, right? The other example could be the telephone, right? When Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, he tried to sell it to back then Western Union. They were the telegraph company. Now, obviously, it was disruptive technology. They didn't think it was worth much. They didn't think they just thought it was stupid technology, and they didn't need it. But obviously, the telephone, we can't live without the telephone in our daily lives today, right? Because it has evolved to such essentially, it is a computer that is in your pocket, right? So it is very common for humans, right, for us to be afraid of disruptive technologies, right? Because it disrupts what we know. It pushes us out of our comfort zones, and we're comfortable because we've gotten used to something, uh, and we just put walls up, and we don't want to know about it. Uh, and so we need to be conscious of that, right? We need to be very conscious of that, because when you put these walls up, eventually you close yourself to the world, and you become obsolete, and you become essentially you just close your mind, right? And I like this saying where um, the mind is like a parachute, right? It works best when it's open, right? So obviously, through these acts, eventually it was amended, then it was repealed. But essentially, what happened was it slammed the brakes on the automotive development in the UK for decades. So, great job to the politicians there. What they did was they managed to, uh, I mean, for those who have early British motor cars, you will know about the reliability issues that you have with them, right? I'm talking about the early Jags and all that. Um, so whilst the other countries did, like Germany and all that, did not have these laws to prevent them from excelling, from innovating, and from getting technically better, the British Parliament did. So what they ended up with was, well, they slowed them down for decades, right? So okay, so this is just a quote from Confucius, right? Study the past if you would define the future. Now, what did he mean by that? Essentially, literally, what it means is, look, if you're going to try and define the future, you need to understand and know what we've done in the past, what we're doing today, and and know the inside outs of it, so that you can then define the new future that you want to define. So that brings us back. So now we take a walk down memory lane, and I'll give you more examples of where where newer technology was bypassed and ignored and laughed at, simply because the decision makers at that time, or the general masses, did not have an open mind, and they didn't take the effort to understand the impacts. They didn't want their world to change. But I mean, history can be the lesson. Obviously the world changed, and there's no stopping it, right? So did you know that the first digital camera was actually invented in 1975? 1975. I wasn't even born yet, right? uh, that's when it was invented. I mean, now we're all taking selfies and taking photos and high def 4K videos and all that with our phones. But the digital camera was actually invented in 1975 by a Kodak engineer named Steve Sasson. So what happened? What happened to Kodak today? Well, Kodak filed for bankruptcy in 2012, obviously. Um, So what management's decision was to bury it, right? There's like, okay, that's fantastic, that's great, but yeah, we're not gonna sell any films, so keep it. Imagine, this was the company that actually invented the digital camera, and they were way, 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 way ahead of competition. But the management decided that because they couldn't sell any film, they would just bury it. Uh, I mean, look, in hindsight, everything's 2020, and you think it's a smart decision. But I guess if you were in management, it's always that balance, right? Do I go for now and just continue to sell film, right? Which is great because I'm raking it in, and I'm really I'm the market leader and all that, or do I pour money into research and see how we can monetize the next big thing, all right, which is digital photography. These guys had a leading position, but they blew it away, right? Because they wanted short-term gain, and eventually they lost the game, right? So this was a fantastic case study of Kodak, right? Here's another example, right? Xerox. What do we know Xerox for now? In the early days, Xerox is very much known for its photocopiers, right? They were very, very much more known for the photocopiers, and photocopiers are, I mean, still with us today. We still use a lot of it, even though we're quite digitized. Paper is still required, and copies are still required, but we're probably using less than we did. But obviously back then, right? So 1973, right? They invented the first modern desktop computer. Again, I wasn't born yet, right? Um, but they made the decision to not like take it any further, They just wanted to focus again on the cash cow of the day. This is my best selling product, so that's where I'm gonna put all resources into so that I can continue selling it. Wait, I'm gonna read some comments. No one even knows what Kodak is. I'm gonna put some of these comments on the yeah. I bet they would fumble around the film into camera. Um, Look, I obviously I used to use these cameras when I was much younger, and yeah, the film. And did you know that when you put the film into the camera and you're taking pictures, let's say you buy a roll of 24 or 36 pictures, right? You actually have to finish the entire roll, and then have the thing rewind so it's back into the container, the film container, before you can open the camera up to take the film roll out, because otherwise you expose it to light and all your photos are gone, right? So yeah. Daniel says it's quite surprising that digital cameras in the 70s. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it, right? Took for a while for it to boom. Yep. People were still using films in the 90s. Yep, that's true. That's true. And look, these days we still use these film cameras. Those instant cameras. I guess it's quite a novelty, right? You take a photo, it actually comes out straight away. So that's quite cool. Yeah, and Alex says that yep, I remember film wasn't cheap. That's right. Yeah, it wasn't cheap, right? But yeah, and that was old technology. And Kim Boon, let's see. Compared with Kodak, Fujifilm, I was still flying, still flying. Yeah, yes. Okay, so look, this is great comments. I like it. Yap Lao says Kodak corporate colors yellow. It was a household name. I remember the load of film properly in the camera. Yeah, that's right. I also remember it. Now now it's nothing but a memory, right? Because there's no such things as these film cameras anymore. But I do remember it, and I do remember the first digital camera that I had, and I borrowed. I think I borrowed it from a friend. Was actually a Kodak. It was quite compact. It was a Kodak. This was in the maybe mid to late 90s. And the highest resolution it could capture back then was 640 by 480. That was the pixels. That was the highest definition I could get on that digital camera back then. And I think it didn't have any zoom, right? But how things have changed, right? How quickly things have changed if you think about it. Now you have, you've got cameras packed with so many pixels. You could probably even print a poster size thing, and it'll still be sharp. It'll be crystal clear, right? Okay, so moving on, right? The next one that I wanted to share was Xerox. So Xerox, again, you will see that they made a decision, right, to not pursue the desktop computer. I mean, they invented the first one, and then in 1979, right, Steve Jobs was given a tour of the R&D lab. The rest is history. Now you have a computer in your pocket, right? But obviously, the Apple computer came and all that. So that's already come and gone, right? And the next example is so this one I think everybody will be very familiar with, right? Netflix. Now, how many have Netflix subscriptions? Please put in the comments below, right? I know I have, and I've had a Netflix subscription since 2000 and maybe 15. It wasn't from Malaysia, so yeah, I've had a Netflix subscription for a while. And look, it's fantastic, right? Yep, Maya's got a Netflix subscription. Fantastic. And I'm sure I'm sure a lot of you do, right? I mean, why not, right? And it's interesting because back when I was a kid, if I wanted to watch a show, a cartoon or a series or whatever, I had to sit in front of the TV at a certain time on a certain day, right? And then the show would come on, right? Um, all right, Kinbun, you also have a Netflix account, good. All right, so back in the day, I had to wait for, like, I remember Sunday mornings was cartoon mornings, right? I would have to sit in front of TV, wake up early, and then I get to watch my cartoons. When I told my kids this, they didn't even understand what that meant, because these days there's video on demand, right? Literally, you just open your Netflix account and you watch it. Yes, sir. Lily, fantastic. You too utilize more during MCO. That's right. That's right. Um, and to kids nowadays, video on demand, like, that was a concept for us back then. The video on demand, right? I remember when I was a little kid, I always dreamed about, oh, if it'll be so cool if I can have this device with me, that I could watch the TV on, right? We all do today, right? It's in our pocket, right? And but back then, video on demand, the concept of video on demand when I was a kid wasn't even available. But now, right, as and when you want to watch something, you just literally whip out your phone or whip out your tablet or your laptop, and you just watch, right? So what happened, right? In year 2000, so the Netflix CEO, right, he proposed a partnership with Blockbuster. Now, Blockbuster, was huge back then, right? Blockbuster, I know they were in, obviously, America. They were in other countries like Australia as well. And Blockbuster was a giant back then, right? What did they do? Obviously, they okay. So what did Blockbuster do? So for those of you who are younger, you probably may not be familiar with this concept. But back in the day, you could go to a Blockbuster and you can browse through whatever movies you wanted to watch. You can then rent those movies. They were in videotapes like VHS and stuff. And then you'd rent it for a week or so, and then you have to come back and return them, right? Otherwise, you get fined, or you have to pay extra charges for taking them longer than a week. So they were huge, right? So everyone had a video recorder, a video player at home, a VHS system, and they can just play it. And yeah, Lau, you too remember Blockbuster, fantastic. Daniel says, how nostalgic is cartoon. That's right. That's right. Maybe we're the same age. And so back then, right? It was commonplace, right? Every household had a video player. So you rent this, you come home and you watch it whenever, and then you have to go and return it. And because they were so huge and big back then, I suppose Blockbuster's CEO back then must have been a little bit, he could not see the future, because right now I've got this huge empire, right? I am global. So why would you, like, why would I team up with you, Netflix? Like, you're a nobody, right? Streaming video, come on, be serious. My internet connection disconnects half the time. Why would I? It's not even reliable. Why would I want to team up with you? He called it a niche business. And back then, don't forget, right? In year 2000, I don't know if we had 3G yet, but we definitely did not have 4G, right? And so he couldn't see the future. He couldn't see the possibility of Netflix, because right now, I mean, you can be in a car and you can be Netflixing, right? You can be watching Netflix. They've turned Netflix from a noun into a verb, right? Let's Netflix and chill, right? You hear that very commonly. So obviously, in 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy because they became obsolete. They became obsolete because they could not see the future, so they were future shocked, right? And in 2020, Netflix's market cap today is 243 billion, right? So yes, they say the rest is history. Alex has a comment. It's more of a link. Why Kodak died and Fujifilm thrived, the tale of two film companies. Interesting story on how Fujifilm diversified into medical equipment and LCD. Okay. So again, it was tech that kind of saved them, right? That's fantastic. Good. Keep the comments coming. Keep the comments coming. Daniel says, yeah, I remember that too. My mom as well. um, Alex says, Blockbuster didn't reject that partnership with Netflix. They will probably still be around today. Yeah, I think so. I think they would. But and so here is the lesson here, right? If you're going to take if you're going to take anything away from tonight's session, it's really, I've had many sessions like this before, but keep an open mind. Like, just because you do not yet understand something new, doesn't mean that it's useless. And just because not everyone is using it, doesn't mean it will not. One day, everyone will be using it. I mean, I still remember when I first got onto the internet in 1994, right? I was like one of the very few that actually had an internet connection, right? None of my friends did, and just because nobody did, doesn't mean, it didn't mean that the rest of the world isn't going to get onto the internet, right? Because eventually they did, right? And back then the internet was so bad, right? I had to dial up, I'd get disconnected, I have to dial up again. Someone in the household would pick up the phone, and my thing would get disconnected. But today, none of us can live without an internet connection, right? You get the shakes. Okay. Let's see. We've got Kinbun that says, yep, Fujifilm, they flew higher while Kodak went bankrupt. Yep. It's a pity Blockbuster went down along with all its retail outlets, loss of rental and jobs. Well, yeah, and that happens, like I said, when you choose to do the ostrich approach, right? You stick your head in the sand. Don't bother me. It'll go away. No, it doesn't go away, right? So, and look, this thing happens to us, like all of us, and every day, right? So there's some very new technologies around that is around, but because we don't quite understand it yet, we will just write it off. So, oh no, that's a scam, or that's a Ponzi scheme, or that's fake. No, it may not be, right? You gotta look deeper into it. So the next one I have, okay, so Yahoo is still around today, right? Some people I know still have a yahoo.com email address, right? This one's interesting because Yahoo was actually one of the first on the scenes, and back then there were so many different types. These days, right? Any of you, right? Anyone who's watching, how many of you actually, when you want to search for something, what do? You Google it, right? That's right. Again, Google's a name. It's a noun, but they've turned it into a verb. Let's go Google it. And back then, Google wasn't even in the dictionary yet. Today, if you check it, Google is in the dictionary. The word Google is in the dictionary, right? So back then, there was so many search engines when the internet came about, right? There was Ask Jeeves, there was Yahoo Search, there was Alta Vista, there was Lycos, right? There was so many of these search engines, and Yahoo was one of the most popular ones, right? Yahoo was actually one of the most popular ones, and Google came around 1996, right? And what happened was, so Yahoo undervalued the importance of search and technology, right? So they called themselves a media company, right? Because they actually they generated a lot of revenue from advertising. Yahoo did. And by 2005, Yahoo was actually among the main players of online ads, right? So a lot of ads was coming through, right? Now, here's the interesting thing, right? For all you investors out there, Google was actually valued at 100 mil in 1999, right? By 2004, when they IPO'd at 23 billion, And today, now you look at all the trillion-dollar companies, Google's one of them, right? They're worth over $1 trillion. Now, there's a few over 1 trillion, right? And most of them, I'll give you a hint, they're tech companies, right? Now, if you were to look back maybe 50 years ago, you would see the industrial type companies that would be in the top 10, right, or the top five. Today, it's all the top guys are mainly tech guys, right? These are the top that get a really high valuation, right? So so what happened? Okay, so today they're at 1 trillion, right? So in 2008, Microsoft actually offered to buy Yahoo for 45 billion. Um, Now the obvious, well, Yahoo turned them down, and then in 2016, they sold themselves to Verizon for 5 billion. Um, I can't remember if Jerry Yang was still in the picture, but Jerry Yang was the founder of Yahoo, right? He was a Taiwanese American, I think. Yeah. So that's another example. Okay, I've got a few more comments which I'm going to flash on the screen. Alex has shared the all right, the history. Kodak is now becoming a pharma company. That's interesting. Um, Maya says Bing. Bing didn't really come along until much later, actually. Mm. And then you have Bing, the advertiser of American Top 40. Yeah, but they were quite late to the game, this Bing. Um, what happened to Polaroid? The company engaged in instant. Oh, look, you can still buy these Polaroid companies, Polaroid cameras. They're more of a novelty factor right now, right? Um, so then we move on to okay, so we've talked a lot about the past, right? And we've talked about the dangers of not looking to the future, or not recognizing, a disruption when you see it, and not looking onto it and just brushing it off, or taking the ostrich approach to technologies. Um, Now, I think in one of our shows, we made reference to a futurist. He's another futurist. His name is Ray Kurzweil. He used to be with Google. Um, oh, sorry, I just saw an interesting comment by Alex. Polaroid was replaced by Instagram. Yes, that's right. Polaroid has been replaced by Instagram. That's a good one, Alex. Um, so okay, so we go back to Ray Kurzweil, right? So so Ray says, right, when people think of a future period, they assume current rate of progress will continue for future periods. Now, so the last time the exponential trend was so flat, it looked like no trend at all. So I hope you can see this. You can see this chart very clearly, right? So this is a very typical chart, right? That progresses technological innovation, right? It usually takes a long time to get it right, right? To get the technology right, to fix things, to fix bugs, to get people to understand how it is used, and for people's imaginations to run wild. And then the adoption comes, and it goes insane. It goes straight up, right? Now, that's essentially a very typical technological adoption type of innovation, right? Now, if I were, let me go on to the. Oh wait, Kim Boon has a comment. He says, "Fujifilm still doing this instant film. Cool, cool. I didn't know that. All right. Now, hopefully you can also see this. So this was the same chart we had before, right? This was essentially internet adoption, right? If you can actually see, so you've got very early days, right up to the 80s, and then the 90s, right? And then this is year 2000, right? And it has just gone insane, right? Now, take a look at Netflix. Take a look at Apple, right? You kind of see a similar looking trend line, right, or chart, right? Takes a while, and then people get it, and then people understand. Now, the interesting thing about technology is also this, right? Look, I've been an observant of tech trends for almost my entire career, and uh, not because I made it as a career, but because I've always been very interested in technology that actually changes our lives. It changes society. It changes, people, how people live globally, right? And so I've always found it very interesting. And I'm one of those guys who are early adopters of tech. The latest new toy that comes out, I want it, right? I'll be the first in line, and I'll get it, right? So so that's me, and I've always observed to um, and why do I want it? Because tech is something that is very interesting, because you gain insights, or more insights, and deeper insights when you actually use it. When you use it, it just unlocks your imagination to the next level, and you figure out, oh wow, I can use it for this and this and this and this, and then it gets, you go down this rabbit hole. It gets very very exciting, and very interesting, right? um, so okay, so this oh, Alex has a comment which I'm going to share. Looks like you're going to be quite patient when it comes to tech, right? For that J curve, yeah, that J curve, that's right. um, so this is Apple, right? Now, I didn't put it here as well, but Amazon's another one, right? Now, Amazon came out in the 90s. They wanted to take on. They wanted, they came on as just they wanted to sell books online, or that was what they started out with. And what happened was, well, those who still remember, there was the dot-com boom, and then there was the dot-com bust, right? So Amazon's share price went from $106, and it fell to $6. 106 down to 6. Now everyone would be, would have shaken, and probably sold off, right? But not Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos knew what he was doing, and he just held up. He's had his shares from the beginning right till now, right? And today, I think Amazon shares are at over $3,000, right? So look, kudos to whoever picked it up at $6 and it's at 3,000 today. Congratulations, you're a genius, right? Um, okay, so again, moving on to the next one. Okay, so who got the future right now? Again, we make reference to Rake as well, right? Now he has this. There's this saying, right, about the second half of the chessboard, and I've talked about this before in the previous show, but I'll quickly go through it, right? So what happened was, wait, let me see if it's this one or okay. So there's this saying about the second half of a chessboard, right? So that's why you see this picture here with the chessboard, right? Um, there was a guy who did a favor for the emperor of this country, and so the emperor was very happy and very pleased, and he says, "Hey, look, you've done a great job, and I want to reward you for doing this great job. Um, what can I give you? Like, what reward would you like?" This inventor, he says, "Oh, look, emperor, look, I actually don't want anything. It's okay. No, no, no. I insist. Uh, I need to, I need to reward you because you have done a fantastic job." Well, okay. I don't want too much, but I need to feed myself, my family, and my village. If you don't mind, on this chessboard, for each square of the chessboard, um, first square, I'd like a grain of rice, and the next square, you double that, and the next square, you double that, and so on and so forth until we reach the end of the chessboard. So, um, So the phrase we are now at the second half of the chessboard is this, right? Is essentially this. This is essentially, if you think about it, it's like compound interest, right? We talk about the CAGR, the CAGR, the compounded annual growth rate. Um, so what is this compounded annual growth rate? You can apply it to investments because essentially you try to compound, you try to like compound your growth, right? So over a certain time. So for example, if your portfolio were to grow 15% every year, right? By the fifth year, you would have doubled your money, right? That's the power of compound, right? Compounded annual growth. So basically, the inventor said to the emperor, "Okay, look, I just want a grain of rice on the first, the first square, and then two on the next, four on the next, and so on and so forth." So essentially, right? So the emperor says, "Oh, you've asked for too little, but okay, if that's your wish is granted," right? And he instructed his servants to then to give this inventor what he asked for. So the emperor quickly granted this and seemingly humble request. So what happens next? The emperor went bankrupt. What? How? Right? Um, so if you actually calculate that, it would have amounted to 18 million trillion. So I guess that's quintillion grains of rice, right? Requiring rice fields covering twice the surface area of the earth, oceans included. Now, what does that mean? So technology follows a similar trend, right? It starts small, right? The impact is next to nothing, and it takes a long time to build. Like I said, layer and layer and layering of technology, of building and building and building, right? But once they cross that second half of the chessboard, things start to get interesting. And that's when you get that J curve and it just goes straight up because it's like what they call a snowball effect, right? It's very small, it's very simple, and then it just snowballs. So think of this, right? Amazon, 106 down to 6, 25, 26 years later, it is now at $3,000, 6 to 3,000. Now think about this, right? Now I'm not saying now please don't go out and buy tech stocks and go and buy Amazon tomorrow. Don't do that. Consult your financial consultant, your financial advisor. I'm just saying that in this day and age, it is usually tech. Tech actually gives you really good returns. Now, whether stocks or whether you're looking into crypto, but obviously you need to know what you are buying, right? What are you purchasing into? So yeah, okay, sorry. So this explains the chessboard, right? So the first half you go from 1, 2, 4, right? 64, then up to 2 billion. But then things get very interesting because then you go from 2 billion, you go to 4 billion, you go to 8 billion, right? And you end up with 9.2 quintillion. All right. So this is insane. All right. Okay. So again, we talk about tech, right? So any new technology is likely that comes to the market is likely to be at least 10 years old. So I guess by the time it comes to market and by the time you hear about it, this was said by Bill Buxton, who's the principal scientist or was of Microsoft Research. Right, by the time you hear about it, it's at least 10 years old. So I've got a perfect example, and I've been talking about it almost every single week for the last, I don't know, since March, right? Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin has been with us now. It's the 11th year this year, right? Banks are starting to jump on it. I mean, banks first totally ignored it, laughed at it, even said it was a Ponzi scheme. And now, I think Standard Chartered is probably the first one to make that announcement. This Bitcoin is 11 years old today, right? But now the banks and the financial institutions are all agreeing that this technology might be real after all. So they're starting to take notice and it's happening, right? I'll move on because I think I've got a few more slides and we're getting close to time. Okay. Okay. So what are the current trends? Like what's happening today, right? 5G, right? So in these pictures, look, a picture paints 1,000 words. Look at this. This guy here is a surgeon, right? He's conducting surgery remotely, right? Just like we're all working from home, right? And we're still working from home because of this COVID thing. This guy's performing surgery remotely, right? You can see it in this picture here, right? And there's that team of surgeons in the operating theater. Now these are heavy equipment, and you can see this guy here. Again, he is working from home, right? But he's driving huge tractors and he's operating heavy machinery remotely. Now think of the possibilities, right? 5G. Now again, I've mentioned that when you look at technology, because you have the arrogance of the present, because it's like, hey, look, I got a horse and carriage. Why would I need a car, right? It's like, hey, I got 4G, right? That's more than enough for me. What's 5G? It's not going to make a huge difference. All I say is please open your mind, right? Because have imagination, open your mind, because this becomes limitless. It opens up so many possibilities, right? With really fast 5G speeds, right? Look, you've got two of the most powerful nations in the world who are now in a fight over this 5G thing. Okay, so it's going to make a huge impact, right? So this is one of the major ones. Look, so we put this here because if you look, Brazil miner Vale cuts output as disaster death toll rises now. Imagine if, that's because they actually need the humans inside the machine operating the heavy machinery. It would be much safer if you could work from home like this dude here and operate it, and it could be a landslide or whatever, but he's safely at home, but he's still doing his job, right? Alex says, after seeing what 5G can do, I want 6G. No, we haven't even explored, we haven't even scratched the surface with 5G, right? 5G is going to bring on so much more innovation. Now, think about it, right? Think about it. Until 4G, right? Look, Facebook was available, right? YouTube had always been available, Instagram and all that. But prior to 4G being rolled out, social media was not as huge an impact as it is today. Today, excuse me, you have youngsters, or not just youngsters, you got old uncles to say, hey, I want to be a YouTube star, right? And they can, right? All they really need is an internet connection, and they can buy their equipment that's readily available from the shops, and they can go on and be a YouTube star, right? And they can do whatever they want. But this was all brought on, right? Remember that J curve when that 4G hit, right? Now imagine when 5G comes, right? Look, the possibilities are endless, right? I'm excited. I'm really excited. So you've got robotics and automation now. Now we're talking current trends, right? I'm sure some of you, or most of you, have seen that the Boston Dynamics. You've seen their robots that where it it can balance itself, right? You can kick it and push it, and it can balance itself. You have this one here is really interesting, right? This is actually a sanitizer or a disinfect. It uses UVC, right? Because of the COVID-19, so to disinfect in the warehouse. So essentially, this robot just goes around the warehouse, right, with the UV lighting, and it goes around. This one here, robot servers, right? Robot who brings you food and all that. I had first-hand experience in Korea, and that was really cool, right? But obviously, just a bunch of so this picture here is actually Spot, the robot, right? It's actually holding up a tablet computer here, and it's showing the face of a doctor who and he's the patient, and he's talking to them, right? Look, because of COVID-19 now, there's a lot of new innovations that's happening. Another trend, look, big data. Big data is not new, right? Big data um, has been around for a while, and you know, since the dawn of time, right? We've had data, right? We've collected data. You've heard of the libraries of Alexandria, right? But now data can be collected and stored and archived through computer systems that are becoming cheaper and cheaper and very fast. And you've got all these machine generated data, right? Every time you make a connection to the internet, which is always on, uh, all this data is being sent through the wires, right, through the air, that you are unaware of, because it's machine generated data. And so many data points, like when you on your iPhone, when it does the face ID and recognition, it plots so many points on your face, and that data is used, right, to recognize, stored, and to recognize it's you, to then give you access and all that. So um, data is everywhere, and so companies now, companies have been, if you've heard the term, data is the new currency. That's because it is, right. Facebook is earning handsomely off your data. Thank you, everyone, for giving you free data. And so are all the other companies that's giving you free stuff, right? Technically, it's not free, because you give your data to them for free, and you get to use an email service, and you get an email account, right? So essentially, and they get to keep that data. Now, of course, there are so many things that can happen, that can be abused. But look, big data is one of those trends, right? And one of those trends that I've been looking at, again, this is in the crypto space, where they say that, look, this is your data. Why don't you monetize your own data and get paid when you give your data away? Now, that's an interesting model, because right now you're giving your data to Facebook, for example, and they're taking your data for free. Well, not free, because they have to set up Facebook and all the servers so that you can share your photos and talk to your friends and all that. But essentially, they use that data and monetize that. So why don't you get some of that monetization, right? So they're looking at models like that. So watch this space, right? Crypto is in the forefront of trying to do this. One of the examples is the Brave browser. If you can Google for Brave browser, it's a browser that blocks all the ads. But if you do view ads, they will pay you in their BAT tokens, right? So this model has been around since 2017 or maybe earlier. But this is something interesting. The other current trend, obviously, is AI. This is everyone's heard of AI. Artificial intelligence. It's been the word's been around for so long, like in the 70s, or but only today, right, that we're seeing the fruition of this, because we have more data, we have a lot more computing power that's a lot faster, storage devices are a lot faster to transfer these chunks of data. We have much faster, bigger pipes, right? So storage devices, I don't mean hard drives, I mean SSDs and stuff, right? So again, I talked about technology being layering, right, or convergence of all these tech coming together. So there's this article, right, where there was a college kid, right, where he created a blog that was AI generated, right, and because it wrote such nice articles, right, it actually fooled so many tens of thousands of people with this blog. People actually thought that a real person wrote it, but no, it was by an AI. It was an algorithm, right, that wrote it, and it made it to top spot in one of the really famous one of the sites. I can't remember the site for it. Yeah, so AI is here to stay, right? And now we're seeing all these applications of AI. Um, you know, it'll be interesting because look, it's just like the car, right? Coming to a horse and carriage and railroad industry. The car's gonna, look, the railroads are still around, the railway is still around, trains still operate. Horse and carriages, unfortunately, are gone, right? Except for fun, right? That you can, be Cinderella for a night and go on a horse and carriage. But AI, big data, right? These are gonna displace a lot of people's jobs, right? They have done, they've done so many things. Um, uh, there was this article that I read where, uh, with big data, because there's a lot of data and AI, they are able to detect cancer more accurately than an oncologist looking at a PET scan, right? So soon, oncologists. I don't think oncologists will lose their jobs, but I think they now work on different things, right? So I better speed this up because it's at 9:01. So yeah, so essentially, look, someone wrote, this is either something written by GPT-3, which is the AI algorithm, or the human equivalent. Zero. So basically, they didn't like that blog post, and then it was. So this is the ironic thing: a human defended the machine on its legitimacy, right? Maybe you're new here, but your comment punches below the belt and isn't acceptable in a community like this. If you disagree, be civil and give reasons rather than throw insults. So a human comes to the rescue of the machine. Um, oh, here's a really interesting one. This one I have to share, right? Uh, Now, Facebook, right? They had to shut off their AI experiment after two of their robots started talking to each other in their own language. It started out with English, but because AI is all about self-learning, right? They found a more efficient way to speak to each other, and they were talking to each other. And they created this new language that the scientists, the human observers, could not understand, and they got scared. So they unplugged it and they switched it off. Who knows what could have happened, right? It sounds a little bit scary, but so experts have called the incident exciting, but also incredibly scary. Look, I mean, I'd be pretty scared, right? So the UK robotics professor Kevin Warwick said, "This is an incredibly important milestone, but anyone who thinks that this is not dangerous has got their head in the sand. We do not know what these bots are saying. Once they have a bot that has the ability to do something physically, particularly military bots, this could be lethal." Look, this sounds like a chapter out of a movie, right? If one says, "Why not do this?" and the other says, "Yes," and it's a military bot, you have a serious situation, right? Um, uh, oh, oops, I clicked on the article. Yeah, okay. Let me get back to the slides. Yeah. Okay, next, machine learning, right? This one is another very interesting story. Essentially, they did a test, right, where you've got these human pilots, right, who have had thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in the air, right, because as a pilot you need to do that. But then you throw in machine learning, right, and they've essentially have had millions of hours of in the air training. So essentially, what they did was they put these Air Force pilots against a drone with against a drone with machine learning, and surprise, surprise, 5-0. The drone won every time because of ML, because of machine learning, right? So again, look, this is another trend that's happening. Obviously, crypto is another trend that's happening today, right? But those who don't understand it call it it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a scam, and it's all that. Look, I've heard it all, and it's interesting because rather than figure out what it is, they automatically dismiss it as something that is fake, that is not real. It's like the whole the horse and carriage and the railroad guy saying, no, 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 no. We don't need this because we have the horse and carriage. Why do I need a horse? Why do I need a motor car when I've got horses and carriages? and I've got the railroad. We've got enough, right? So look, similarly, this is I just put this article up here. You've got a Bitcoin whale moved 212 million, and the transaction fee for that was 393, right? That's obviously for Bitcoin, but for those of you who are in crypto and in the know, now on the Ethereum network, on the Ethereum blockchain network, I saw something crazy like a transaction fee of, but this is like, this is this is an outlier. It was 450,000, 450 million. Anyway, it was something crazy. So, so what could the future look like? Look, I guess today was an introduction, and I said those who managed to stay till the end, we are changing, as in we are expanding the scope of our Thursday nights. Oh wait, I've got a few more slides. Sorry, I'm gonna finish it, right? So look, another futurist, right? Another quote from a futurist: "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic," right? Just like, like I said, horse and carriage days. Imagine if you suddenly were have this motor car that had no animals pulling it, like it's magic, right? Raker as well, right? He says, within a few decades, machine intelligence will surpass human intelligence, leading to what's known as the singularity. Technological change so rapid and profound, it represents a rupture in the fabric of human history. Look, this one gets a bit sci-fi-ish and it gets a bit scary, but it remains a possibility, based on what we're seeing. So can you survive the next future shock, right? So again, we go back to Alvin Toffler, right? Alvin Toffler says, to survive, to avert what we have termed future shock, the individual must become infinitely more adaptable and capable than ever before, right? Look, it's very Darwinian, right? Where it's not the strongest that survive, but the most adaptable, right? Are we able to adapt? So if something is future-proof, it will continue to be useful or successful in future if the situation changes. So going back to future-proofing, right? What does it mean to be future-proof? Well, you have to adapt, right? You have to be aware of current trends, and you try to future-proof yourself so that you're able to not be obsolete, right? Now think about this, right? You hear about the term data scientist. Oh, data scientist this, data scientist that. Up till 12 years ago, right, before 2008, that's when the term data science was actually termed. Until then, there was no such job as a data scientist, right? And that's why if you actually look on the job sites, you'll find that the data scientist is the most sought after. And they pay big bucks for that as a career, right? To find a data scientist, you find a lot of people calling themselves data scientists. But if you look at what a data scientist is, there are elements of computer science, there are elements of stats, maths and stats, and then there are elements of domain knowledge or experts, right? Domain experts of a certain field. So essentially, it needs to intersect, all three intersecting. That's what a data scientist is. It's almost like a unicorn. They're not that easy to find because, look, the term has only been around for 12 years, right? So essentially, the max you can get of a data scientist, right? Look, especially like universities will probably come up with degrees and all that. But essentially, you needed all three. So so think about this, right? The future is hard to predict, but how do we overcome that? We need to future-proof ourselves. And how do you do that? We have to be adaptable, right? Keep your minds open, right? Keep them open. Do not use the existing framework as the be-all, end-all, because the future can look very different, right? Because technology is often the catalyst to change and new trends. Tech is usually the driver and the catalyst for this change. So keep your eyes peeled. And look, if you're into investing, um, these are the themes that we're looking at, right? And for the past so many weeks, I've been talking only about crypto because one, I'm very involved in it. It's a very exciting space, but so are all the other things. And many a times you'll find that it's the convergence of these trends that somehow come together, and then you get that J curve, right? Can you figure out what they are, right? Let's figure it out together, right? And so we've decided to name our this segment, right? It's still copy time, but we're renaming it from Crypto Night to Future Proof. Look, leave some comments or do it next week or this week. See if you like the new name. We've decided to call it Future Proof. I hope I think this is the last slide. I hope tonight's session was good, and I hope you were able to. I hope I was able to at least help you, open up your mind, or at least catch up with some latest trends, right? All right, thank you. Have a nice night. Yeah, and I hope you like the new name. Put some comments, right, even after the show, whether you like the new name or not. So it's copy time, future proof. Okay, thank you guys. Have a good night. Bye.